Buenos dias. It's Mr. NASCAR himself, Holden Kushner, alongside Rubio and Statsational. Welcome into the Amber Health 400 show, NASCAR picks show here on Run Pure Sports. Good morning, Statsational. I know we had a huge showing as far as viewers for that Daytona 500 show. Hopefully we get a whole bunch of people in here as well. How'd you do last week, my friend, and how are we doing today?
Did well last week. Yeah, it was Daytona's always it's always a little tricky, and it's one of those where you could basically just bomb out or just have a monster day. Did not win $1 million, but did well and was in contention. And with the NASCAR, when you sit there for a few hours, just being in contention is part of the fun. So had a few up at the top. I saw some of our other guys up there. Big T had a good one, so Rubio with some good lineups. So it was good. And yeah, I'm hoping for a good day today. We got a similar track, but not quite the same. So we'll be getting into it.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I 3X, so thanks, guys. I turned my 10 cents into 30 cents. Actually, I did spend a little bit more than that, but what was it? Yeah, a little more than 3X, actually. Thank you very much, Rubio and Stats, because you guys helped me out a whole bunch. Rubio, talk to me, pal. What's going on in your world? How did Daytona finish, and what are we looking forward to today?
Yeah, I mean, Daytona was fun. I mean, obviously the Monday races, I felt like the night race was a little bit more. Xfinity always has a little bit more juice, but the Xfinity series yesterday and even the Truck series yesterday gave us a peek into what we can expect today. Like, I know that it's another super speedway, a mile and a half basically, but instead we just had a whole bunch of single file racing. So I wonder if we see something like that today, and I'm sure that we're going to get into that. Talk about, will we see similar style? Will we see any passing for the lead? Because yesterday, Holden, there was absolutely nothing in either series.
Tell you what I want to see now. Jake is in here saying we turning left. Can we do a turning right course? Can we do that? Can we just go right sometime, or is it just always going to be the same way?
Yeah, road courses.
Yeah, road courses go right.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's all different turns.
I don't know.
It's not an oval.
About. You asked me to do the show. I do the NASCAR show. I wake up. I do 2 hours of prep, so I don't sound like a complete idiot. But there's things that I'm not going to understand, and it's just about it. You're right, Don Yeezy. Imagine not being an RPS member, because last week the NASCAR content absolutely slayed. We have NBA back up and going again. I know Tony and a couple of other members, more than a couple, had a big night in the UFC. So lots going on here. And then golf. We got the golf today, too. It is time to run pure. Like button to be wonderful. We're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of this a little bit sooner. Sometimes we BS for 20, 30 minutes. But I do want to get into a couple things before we get into today's race, okay? So many people, when they think about NASCAR, they think about Florida, I would think. And I don't know if you guys saw this. I posted it in the chat yesterday, but in the city where my parents live is the Florida Man games. And I wonder if you guys are interested in going to the Florida Man games with me next year. We could stay at my parents' place. There was the Eat the Butt Challenge at 1020. I don't think that's what you think it is. I think they eat cigarette butts. Stats. I think they eat cigarette butts, or else there's a whole bunch of RPS guys that would be in that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess depending on the on the gender, you could be one of the butts, I would assume.
Yeah, you could. You could. And Rubio is very uncomfortable right now because he's too young and he doesn't do that.
But now we allow everyone in all different. There's no more male female sports, so it gets a little tricky.
Okay, we had an alligator show at noon. Missed the alligator show. I don't know what they do. It'd be great if like one of the attendees got eaten. That to me would be great. The Florida Ma'am pinup. I can't imagine that's a good looking woman, Rubio. Florida woman, the Florida Ma'am pinup. Do you have anything here for us?
Sounds like pin the donkey type style. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that.
Chicken shit bingo. Florida sumo. The mullet contest, which I must say, my son, my little 6-year-old, he keeps telling me he wants a mullet, and I keep telling him no because I had one when I was 15, and I regret it to this day, but he wants to be in that. The evading arrest obstacle course, I think that's a good one. JBC would be great in that. Stats. I think JBC would be a winner.
I don't know about that.
You don't think he'd win?
No, the arrest party be fantastic at the evading.
And then brawl of the badges. Do you think they get cops in there just beating the shit out of each other? Rubio's just completely lost. He was planning on straight up NASCAR and nothing else today. He wants nothing to do with this the Florida Man games, which I find absolutely spectacular. And I don't know if Florida Man is as popular as it used to be, Rubio. Given that you are like, well, I don't even know what you are. You're not a millennial or a Gen Z. Have you ever heard of Florida Man?
Oh, I heard of Florida Man before. Sorry, I was focused on making my groups for these.
Yeah, of course you were. All right, get out of here. I got other stuff I need to talk about. Yes.
Where in Florida is this going to be?
St. Augustine, where my parents live.
All right. That's
enough with this crap, Bono says. Enough with this crap. All right, so I'll move on to some more crap. Do you want to give a little background as to what happened to Cindric and LaJoie last week? I'm going to get some sound for this thing because they were not happy with each other. So maybe a little bit of background with what went on last week.
Yeah, I mean, there was just it's Daytona, and they got into a wreck, and Cindric was pissed off about it. So that's basically all the background you need, and there could be some retaliation this week, which is kind of the fun of NASCAR. These guys get into it and they'll wreck each other easily. So he basically thought there wasn't enough room to get in. Cindric, he kind of blamed LaJoie for causing the accident that was the big pileup at the end of the race, and yeah, I mean that's basically it. So it's very typical NASCAR stuff.
Check this out. I'm going to throw this up here, and we can listen to exactly what happened.
Finished fourth, so congrats. I mean, he tried to fit a car where there wasn't a car, and just continued to push through my left rear and tie.
Pretty much summed it up.
That's racing.
It's the last lap. It's I've seen him do a lot of dumb things too, and we're not friends. So.
They're not friends. That's a little sad that they're not friends. Do you think we can have a little bit more of that today? Maybe they'll get at each other a little bit, guys.
Well, the thing with it is you've got to be close, right? So, and we'll talk about kind of how this race is going to play out, or how we think it will. And what we saw, Rubio was kind of alluding to it a little bit earlier when we looked at the trucks and you looked at the X-Pin. They kind of just lined up. They were racing in a line, basically one line, because the bottom of the track, real tough to run on the bottom, so you had to run up top, and that means you couldn't really pass because there was only it's kind of one lane that you could drive in. You had to stay up there. So unless you had a phenomenal car like Love yesterday, and the X-Fin just had a dominant car, and he was kind of able to he was able to late in that race take the lead again from the inside and from the bottom line, which just most guys weren't able to do. And we'll see if anyone has that ability today. But because of that, we'll see. It's going to be difficult for them to be in a position for one of them to wreck the other. But if they do get side by side, which you'll see later in the race when these guys are trying to make a move, if they're anywhere near each other, then the possibility is always there. But it's just going to take a lot of luck for that to happen.
So LaJoie and Cindric, you got any thoughts on that, Rubio? A little bit going head to head.
Yeah, LaJoie got on his podcast, basically said that Ross kind of came down on Cindric, and it caused Cindric to kind of lose control of the car. So I don't think anything of it. I'm sure they're grown men or whatever. If Cindric really wants to retaliate, he can. But LaJoie's not going to worry about it at all. I mean, LaJoie's got a decent car this year. Absolutely could get into like another top 10. Because like last week, he did really well, and I don't think he's going to be concerned. If anyone's concerned, it's Cindric, but this is his style of racing too. I don't think either one of them want to win a race, especially this early in the season.
All right, so here's what we got. We're going to go by price. We're going to go bottom to top. So we'll start with the cheap guys here in a minute. But Atlanta Motor Speedway, Amber Health, 260 laps. So second straight race on a drafting track, guys. Obviously, we got Byron, who won the Daytona 500 last week. He's won 2 of the last 4 in Atlanta. So we've got that. Give us a little preview here of the track, Rubio, and a little overall view of what we're going to see today in Atlanta.
Yeah, so we have our playbook up on the site. It's 260 laps, so potential of 172 Dominator points. So basically 400 miles of racing today. It's at 1.54 miles of track. So it's a mini super speedway in a sense. Like Shane Van Gisbergen, Jesus goodness, the Xfinity driver who came all the way over from New Zealand, called it Daytona on steroids. But the racing is far from Daytona. So yesterday, in our small sample of just 2 races we had yesterday, there was a lot of straight line racing. No one was willing to make a move. And when they went to the bottom lane, you would lose 7 to 8 positions, depending on how fast that pack is in that top lane. So even a guy like Austin Hill, who's a very good driver in these type of tracks and stuff, was falling back when he went to the bottom. So it almost kind of goes into the point where you need like teammates with you. And if you do want to make a pass at the bottom lane, you either have to have a really fast car or you need someone pushing you from the back. And it doesn't just take 2 cars. It takes almost 5-6 cars in that line to even create some speed at that bottom section. So really, I'm kind of expecting this first stage to be really bland. And then it kind of comes into who gets out of the pits, who's able to kind of move up. Because that's something that we saw. Like, only one guy was really able to make that work, and it was Jesse Love, who was in the best car yesterday in Xfinity. And I know we have Cup Series, last year. They had a couple races here. Joey Logano ended up leading over 100 laps here last year in the March race here at Atlanta. So I'm not hopeful that it's going to be very much chaos. I think we will see a little bit of single file racing because it is the next gen car. There has been complaints about passing in the past, and I'm worried that we're going to get a bland race, but it's one that we just have to account for in DFS purposes, though.
All right, just so you guys and girls know, right now in the NASCAR Discord for subscribers, Big T's in there answering some questions. So that'll be going on. Maybe Rubio will double dip. I hope he just pays attention to this. Stats, give us a little breakdown of this track, and then maybe a couple of names that you'll be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, Rubio said it pretty well. Like I said, it's definitely going to be single file type racing. They're going to be racing up at the top of the track. Getting to that bottom is just, it's dangerous. And then we saw a few guys yesterday in the Xfinity when they tried to make that move to the bottom, hoping others would come with them. Others didn't. And like Rubio was saying, you probably need like 5 or 6. So no one has that many teammates who will be that close to them at the same time to make that move. The only time it's going to happen is in the last 10 laps maybe of the race, where guys are going to take a shot. The guys a little further back, 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever, may all team up together and say, hey, let's take a shot, move this thing down to the bottom and hope we get enough push, because if you're not first, you're last, right? So they'll take that chance, but you're not going to see that all race long. Maybe a little bit at the stage points, but probably not even. So it's going to more than likely be a boring race. Now, if you're looking at the history of this race, you could really only go back 2 years because they've changed this track. So those new to NASCAR DFS, this is a totally different track than it was prior to 2 years ago. So and then last year we even had a rain shortened race. So that kind of skews the data as well. So we don't have a ton of data on this race. Now, historically, now we're talking about this being very similar to Daytona. It's different in the sense that Daytona, you want to just take all these guys that are starting 30th and back, and you just kind of run with those guys. We've seen the guys up at the top be in the optimal because you can lead the laps here. Unlike Daytona, where they're running in 2 lines, and the lead just kind of changes. We talked about last week that over-under was like 15.5 on different leaders. Not the case this week. So you're only going to have you may have 1 dominator, possibly 2. So when you're looking at lineup construction, getting that one dominator could still be someone starting near the top of the pack and be optimal. And that's happened just about every one of these races. And we've had instances where 2 of the top 10 starting drivers have finished in the optimal. So when we're constructing this week, it will be a bit different than it was with Daytona.
So are you saying just 1 dominator?
I think you have to have 1. Like there will be 1 dominator in this race. And I prefer that, especially if I'm making 1 lineup, 3 lineups.
What about 2?
Like that.
What about
you
2?
Could easily get 2. I think if I was doing, if I'm 150 MME, absolutely, I'm looking at least 1, basically. Well, between 1 and 2 dominators. And if I'm doing a single entry 3 max 20, I might just stick to 1 dominator. Now, figuring out who that dominator is going to be is another tricky question. But you can easily get it here, and we'll start getting into the driver specifically. But someone's going to start this race in the lead and more than likely hold on to it. So who starts the race best? And McDowell is the pole sitter. He potentially, he's not going to be very high owned. He potentially could lead a bunch of laps because he's going to start on that favorable line. But if Logano starting at second is able to take the lead, we've seen, like Rubio said, Logano won, I think, led like 100 some odd laps last year. I think even maybe 140 laps, whatever it was. So obviously the potential is there for him to dominate this race and be in the optimal. But that's what it's going to take from one of these guys starting up in the top 5 or so. They're going to have to dominate the race and then have a decent finish in order to be in the optimal.
How many dominators you going with today, Rubio?
Yeah, so I posted on the playbook 11 dominators, so 11 potential guys we think can lead the race. So I thought someone asked, what makes dominator? Just starting position. In a sense, starting position helps, right? Because Michael McDowell, normally if he was starting 20th in this race, I probably wouldn't consider him a dominator. He's starting on pole. He gets the outside lane to start. There's a very real chance that he leads the first 60 laps of stage 1, right? There's a very real chance of that maybe happening. That's what makes him a dominator. But you also have guys like Chase Elliott, who starts 28th in the back, right? Would it be a shocker to see Chase Elliott lead laps? Absolutely not. Keselowski, Bell, Hamlin, Truex, Byron, Blaney, Larson, Busch, Logano, and McDowell as that 11 group. So if you want to rewind that, you can. But you also have a sense here, too. So that this is where the mix comes in. And I just posted it to Discord. What my plan is, Big T also posted it in there, too, and what stats kind of going into detail on. If you do a min 2 of those 11 guys, well, you're going to end up with a lot of what? Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell. But if you do a min 2, and this is why with Sabre and any optimizer you use, make sure you have those uniques cranked up, even if it's 2 or 3, if it's 20 max or something like that. And you'll still get a good blend of those guys. So you'll still get a good blend of the McDowells, the Loganos, the Larsons, right? So it's important to do that. I mean, one thing that makes Chase Elliott, Keselowski, and Bell such great plays because, well, they have PD added on to their dominator potential. So we'll get into those a little bit later. But, yeah, it's a minimum of 2 for me, but I also include those guys starting in the 20s back there, which kind of cheating a little bit. But if you just did the top 15 guys, min of 1, max of 2 between those like 8.
All right, for those of you that are subscribers, I'll be taking the questions from the live show chat in the Discord. So that's where the questions will come from. If you have a question for Rubio and Stats, get into the live show chat for members only. And that's when we're going to take, unless I see that you're a member here in the YouTube. But go over to the live show chat. We'll get that taken care of for you. Next. Like button would be great. We finally hit the number we need to start breaking down drivers. So we'll do that. Like button would be great. Let's hit that today for the good mojo. And again, RPS 15% off first payment. Get all our NASCAR coverage there. We've got NBA and an NBA show coming up later today as well. Golf in full swing, spring training, baseball. Hey, Stats, what are we doing as far as spring training baseball? I think I'm about to start betting it within the next week or so. So I'm excited about that too.
Listen, there's a lot of sharp guys betting on preseason baseball right now. So I'm just starting to wrap my head around it.
Me too.
To get back in the baseball swing. So I was over at I was at a store by me, and right across the street's the Yankee spring training. So I saw a little bit of that going on. I got the Phillies over here in Clearwater. So yeah, I'm starting to feel it, man. I'm seeing the boys. I wish I had some more time. I love going to spring training, just watching the guys work out. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll get that going. We'll probably get some bets going in the RPS bet on the bet. What do you want to call it? Subscription.
Yeah.
And we'll be getting some bets going for that.
Yeah, add the bet side. I mean, the bet side has just been terrific, especially the premium plays, whether it be college, a lot of college basketball right now, NHL they're focused on, UFC. And you threw some NASCAR bets out there today. The favorites, Joey Logano, Blaney, then Kyle Busch. Those are 3 of the favorites today. Without giving away all your picks that you posted, can you give away one pick today, Stats? And I don't know if you're betting this, Rubio. We could talk to you about it. Shake your head, yes or no. You bet? You got any bets, Rubio, on this one? We'll leave it to Stats. Stats, give us a bet today. Just one.
I mean, I was going to give you. Let me give you 2 bets. How about that?
All right, because you got to bet multiples in NASCAR.
You got to bet multiples, and then I'm going with. I got a couple of real big long shots. I mean, everyone's kind of a long shot.
Yeah.
When you're betting NASCAR, it's kind of the fun of it. But I'm going to take a guy who like everyone was on last week, so I'm going to take him now this week and see if we can get a bounce back. The guy was really good at this type of racing, so I'm going with Keselowski at plus 1,500. I like that bet. And then the guy who's just going to be the chalkiest guy on for DFS, and it's going to be difficult to do from the last spot. But at plus 4,500, I'm going to take another guy who's pretty good on these type of tracks, and that's Eric Jones. So I'll take a shot there. Now, obviously long shot, we're getting plus 4,500, but hey, it'll give me something to root for. And you never know how pitch strategies are going to work out, and he'll cycle up to the front. But as far as DFS goes, we'll get into it. He's going to be the big play today.
All right, Rubio, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start at the bottom on DraftKings pricing, and then you guys, if you want to do a little FanDuel, we can do that at the end. But we'll go down to McLeod at 4,800. We'll go up through 5,900. So that'll be the price range here. Any reason, Rubio, to go down to McLeod at 4,800? Didn't qualify for the Daytona 500. He's back today. He starts from the 36th spot. Zane Smith. Hey, do you know another Zane Smith stats? Have you ever heard of another Zane Smith? Do you remember him? Pitcher, Atlanta
pitcher. I was going to say pitcher. Yeah.
1980s. But we got Zane Smith today, 5,700, finished 13th at Daytona. He's from the 29th spot today. What do we got in this price range? Rubio Dimes, 48 to 5,900.
Yeah, I mean, this is where you're going to dumpster dive a little bit, right? None of these guys have great odds. Like Justin Haley's equipment isn't great, but he's probably the best. I would say maybe the most talented racer of anyone below 5,800 below, because I do like Carson Hocevar at 5,900. But you just have some options, I would say. I know that's a terrible word to describe it, but like with BJ at 4,800, I'm just not really excited by it. I'm just not sure how many spots he can move up. Like, it's more of an attrition play. And this track didn't have a ton of attrition just in the past two races and stuff, but it's a safe one. It opens up the door for these Doms. That's the reason why you want to go up to him, is because, if you think Hamlin leads the race, or if you think Logano leads the race, boom, you get a mid 10K option. You need to kind of offset it with someone down here. And so if you just ask me who my favorite play is, 5,900 below, though, it's Hocevar. There's a guy with talent, half decent equipment, good on these type of tracks, and ran really well at Daytona in both races. Really, I think he did pretty well in the duels, and even into the Cup Series. It's promising, and I just like his talent. I think if there's anyone, if you had to make me bet on who's going to get involved in the wreck, Hocevar would probably lead that pack. But 5,900 is someone I can absolutely entertain. I think Justin Haley would be second, followed by Hemrick. There's not a whole lot to get excited by down here, though. I mean, Hemrick's fine at 26th, where he's starting there, but the upside's kind of limited. And you can say that with anyone here. I mean, I just don't really get thrilled with this range. So Hocevar, Haley, and Hemrick, and Zane Smith. I kind of glossed over him.
Zane Smith. Got to get him in there. So you can't fully ignore the price range, can you? In an MMA?
No, not at all. If you want Hamlin, if you want Logano, I mean, if you even want like guys like Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney up there too, like if you want those potential dominators, you need to go down. So again, I know I just ranked it wrong, but yeah, no, it's Hocevar, Zane Smith, Haley, and then it would be Hemrick if you really needed a fourth.
All right, we're starting to get questions in on the live show chat. Again, if you're a subscriber, we'll get into that probably, toward the end of the show. So make sure you get those questions in there. Stats, what about this price range, 5,900 and below? How much exposure, and who's your favorite racer down here? Your favorite driver?
Yeah, so I kind of I'm of the same thinking here. I like Hocevar. I would say Hocevar and Haley are my two favorites. I mean, Haley, we talked about last week. He was kind of my long shot. He was starting mid-pack and not a high-owned guy. I just thought he would be a good low-owned guy to throw out there, and then he wound up he wound up getting involved in a wreck and not finishing well. But he's got the potential, different equipment, different car here than he's had in the past. But he's a really good plate racer, and he's had some good success here. He's had 2 top 10s and an 11 at this track, so he's a guy who can easily get into the top 10. But you do have a bunch of guys that you want to throw out. I mean, probably the worst play of the day is going to be Gilliland, right? Starting fourth. We talked about it. If you're going to be optimal starting up that high, you've got to lead a bunch of laps, and he really has no chance to do that. I don't think you're going to find just a rando who's going to lead a bunch of laps at this track. And then I think Harrison Burton would be the other guy that I would totally want to fade. But you've got I have no problem fading Gralla, Williams, even McLeod or Hemrick. If you want to do total fades in those in the 150, I think you can do that. And historically at this track, again, we don't have a ton of history, but the guys who've started like 36 to 40th have not hit the optimal yet. Now we've got a different situation here because we've got Jones starting. Usually you don't get the top driver starting so low, but take that, where you get these scrub drivers starting in a bad spot. They haven't really hit. So, and they haven't, because we haven't needed them. And then with the fact that we've got such better place differential guys, we've got just a bunch of guys with good place differential that are better quality drivers. I think a lot of these guys we're going to be able to just kind of punt and get rid of them out of our lineups, fade them.
Rubio Stat said there's 3 guys that he's just crossing out in this price range. How many would you say there are in an MME?
Nah, I'm with him. Yeah, like BJ, Josh Williams, Kaz Brawley, even, and then Harrison Burton is another guy. I mean, he's not terrible in these type of tracks. Like you can keep him in. At the end of the day, like, don't want to cross off too many. Gilliland, absolutely, you cross off though. Starting 4th, he's probably the worst play on the entire board. But yeah, you don't want to completely cross them off because like my initial reaction is I don't want any of these guys, and all of a sudden you're like, well, some of these guys in the top range, and you don't really want to go completely overweight on just one of these drivers too, like whether it's Haley Smith or Oates Farley. So yeah, just make sure that you're diversifying it a little bit down there. But yeah, I think you can safely cross off 3 to 4 names.
Yeah, our guy Kevin Wrightsman put in a rule no more than 1 from this group in our optimizer Saber Sim.
Yeah, I think I almost don't think you even need to set a rule just because they're so cheap to where like, if 2 were hitting in your lineup, you'd be it would be very poorly projected.
Like button. Let's go. Let's get that going. We're a little low on the likes, and big show today. Let's get into the 6K range, boys. We'll go from 6K up to 6,800. This has guys like Nemechek, Briscoe, Lejouet. I just said Lejouet. It's not Nap Lajoie though. Rubio Dimes. How does Rubio Dimes mispronounce this?
Corey LaJoie.
LaJoie. Yeah, very nice. There's a Z in there somewhere, Stats. There's definitely, it's a silent Z.
It could be.
Yeah. Do you want to start with him?
Yeah, no, we could start with him because he's going to be one of the best plays on the board. So, I mean, he's going to be core for a lot of people. I got him in the core. And
can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Is you like him because he's really good on drafting tracks?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, right? So, I mean, you saw last week, 4th, he's had a lot of top 10 finishes at these type of tracks. So starting where he is, 32nd, I mean, it's just, and obviously the price is right at 6,800. He's just going to be massively owned, upwards of 45, 50% type of ownership that you're going to get on LaJoie. So a guy, I think, when I say you have to, if you're single entry, you got to pick who you're going to fade. But this is one of the guys that I'd be careful with. I like him as a core play here. And then the other guy who's really going to be high owned and looks good. Now, we don't have a lot of history necessarily in the cups, but John Hunter Nemechek is going to be high owned here as well. So he's in good equipment. He's in the Toyota legacy equipment. Perhaps that's a guy you may want to fade, but again, it's difficult at that 34th start position. If you want to take a chance where we haven't really had anyone in the back of the pack be in the optimal before, and then if you think Jones is going to get there, who we'll get to later, who's starting all the way in the back, do we get like 3 of these guys this time? Probably not. So my guess is we'll only get 1 of these guys, and they're going to be 2 really high-owned guys here. But I mean, I do like both of them, but I think I would give the nod to LaJoie. And then the other guys in this list, I think, are almost total fades. Briscoe, Priest, and Gragson. Just don't like the starting positions for those guys. Yeah, Briscoe starting in the top 10. I mean, he's had some success at these type of tracks, but starting in the top 10, he's going to have to dominate a bunch of laps. He's going to have to lead a bunch of laps. So I think you can almost play a pure fade there. Gragson, just don't like him at these tracks, and the same thing with Priest. So you can almost fade all the other guys, and then LaJoie and Nemechek are going to be 2 very high owned at this price range because of that.
All right, let's go through this price range here. And I wonder, because you were talking about, I think you threw your core out there too, Rubio. You were being nice today. Who are we coring from this 6K range?
That's Corey LaJoie. I mean, you just see him start 32nd and back. He's in decent equipment. it ultimately just comes down to, can you get me a top 20, a pretty cheap tag? And he absolutely checks those boxes. He can even go higher than 20. You know, he's got great odds to win too. He is definitely one of the best players on the board, but it's absolutely no secret. You know, he's going to be pretty chalky in this price range too. But still, you know, he's a good play that you want to get overweight on. You know, I know what we talked about, the lack of passing, right? We talk about it, but still, you're able to move up 10, 15, you know, even 20 spots in his case too, where I'm not worried about he's starting far enough back where it's not even really a concern. And you also just summed it up stats. You could have really shortened like Gregson, Priest, and Briscoe and just say you're not a huge fan of Stewart Haas Racing, because I mean, that team it's troubling. I did the same thing too. I mean, what is there to be a fan of? I mean, I'm glad that there's, you know, had a decent qualifying run, like Priest at 20, Gregson 15, Briscoe 9, but you're not sitting up and saying, oh yeah, one of these guys I'm definitely playing. That's just not the case. And you know, maybe Stewart Haas gets a little bit better here in the future, but yeah, for this race, we're hand in hand here. Nemechek would be, you know, the guy that I'd have interest in behind LaJoie, starting far enough back at 34. You know, he's going to be in the mid-20s of ownership too. I mean, it is a little bit chalky, but you know, this is kind of that next range up from that 5K range. Like, I definitely prefer Nemechek over Zane Smith, even Haley or Hosfar too. So Nemechek gets a little bit more respect from me than those 5K guys, but he's still a mile back from LaJoie for me to hold.
Thoughts on having a great track history here from our boy Mardon Yeezy? Obviously, something we're taking into account, stats.
Yeah, like I said, you know, just all the kind of all these these super speedway type races, LaJoie's been pretty good. So he's got a lot of top 10s at these type of tracks. So I think that's what everyone's looking at. And I think Rubio said, I mean, even if he's 20 places, if he gets you 20 spots and he gets you into the top 12, he should be in the optimal lineup. So I think that's very doable here. And so, yeah, that's why he's going to be perhaps, well, he won't be the highest owned guy, but he's going to probably be the second highest owned guy on the slate.
You know what? I'm going to take this question now because Nicholas Shinhadi Stan, whatever. Hey, nice name, Nicholas. But I know he's in the NASCAR chat. He's in the live show chat. Different price range here, but he goes, this is the live show chat for the subscribers. If you had to choose between McDowell and Logano, which one would you have more exposure to in the mini? Thanks. So either one of you want to chime in on that one?
I mean, I'll jump in first. I think Logano's got a better shot, even though he's starting in the unfavorable position here. The better start spot is going to be McDowell. But I think the potential there for Logano to lead a bunch of laps is just a little bit greater. And his ownership will be higher. If you want to take a shot, with the lower ownership, it could pay off really well with McDowell. And he's great at this type of racing, Daytona winner. So, but I would lean more towards Logano here.
All right, let's move on to our next price range, and that'll be the 7K range. Austin Cindric, he finished first in stage 1 of the race last year. 3 straight Atlanta finishes of 12th or better. Starts from the 8th spot. Rubio, I'll come to you first here. Maybe get into Cindric first, and then we can roll through the rest of the 7K range, which ends at 7,800 with Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, with Cindric and even Austin Dillon, you know, despite being good at these type of tracks, they're in that price range and they're in that starting position to where, do they offer you enough upside? And the answer is probably not. So I just ran a Max sim on Saber Sim. You know, actually, not a sim. I did an optimizer with the contest sims, but I get no Cindric or Dillon. But you know who I do get a lot of? It's a lot of these other guys: Suarez, Stenhouse, McDowell, Gibbs, and I guess it's the last 4 there. And yeah, it makes sense. Like Suarez here, you know, starting 23rd, Stenhouse starting 27th. Those guys are great place differential plays. Like, they have the ability to not just get in the top 15, but even snake in the top 10. And that's good enough for the price and their starting position. McDowell is someone who you need to lead that first stage. If he doesn't take advantage of it on the first bite of the cookie, you know, that cookie's going to spoil. You know, it's ultimately, if he leads the first 50 laps of the race, great, top 10. Maybe enough at this price. Probably is enough. If he gets 45 to 50, I would take that all day at 7,700. I would take it and run. Problem is, if he doesn't lead, you're not in a great spot. So it's one of those tournament only plays. Definitely something that you wouldn't roll in cash. Like, single entry has a little bit of risk, but the ownership on him, I don't think it gets too high. I just think like a lot of people are going to respect the Logano car. I mean, we did see that Jesse Love had the best car, and he was able to make the pass on the bottom lane. So maybe there's thinking that Logano might be able to do the same to start. But still, if you are doing like a 20 max, or if you're running even 3 lineups, give McDowell a little bit of consideration. Doesn't mean you have to have him. But I think Gibbs is the next one there at 7,800. Kind of fits the same bill as Stenhouse and Suarez. Great equipment. I like the aggressiveness. Like, would it be a shocker to see him in the top 10? No. Just slightly off-putting, though, is that his odds are 40-1. I was expecting his odds to be a little bit better than that. I don't know why. I just think he has a lot of talent and stuff, but maybe time will come on that one. I know that I will be betting him to win several races probably here upcoming in the season, but not today.
Okay, very good. Stats, let's get into this 7K range. And Rubio was just saying, what, four racers or 4 drivers are really popping up with Suarez, Stenhouse, Bell, and Gibbs. How many of those of that range do you have? And can you break down the whole 7K range?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the interesting things, and I agree with what Rubio was saying here with Dillon and Cindric, while they've had success here, their start position is not good. But take a look, like Cindric's team. It's Penske, right? So you've got now Penske with Cindric, then you've got Logano, and you've got Blaney all starting up in the and I think they're starting on the same line as well, right? So they're all going to be starting at the bottom. So you have the potential. That's the potential for Logano maybe to get to the front, where if they could line up and then work with each other. So I think that's something we have to look at, where I'm not necessarily looking at Cindric to be the play, but I think Cindric may be the key to get Logano to the front and then get Logano all these laps. So I think that's the interesting part with those guys, but I don't have a lot of love to play Dillon and Cindric in my lineups. McDowell, I think you want to sprinkle him in just for what Rubio was talking about. If he does get out there in the lead, it will be tough to catch him from the inside. And if those guys at Penske can't team up and can't line up and give the push to Logano to get in front of McDowell, he could easily lead like the first stage and get a top 10. He's that good at these type of tracks where he could do that and be in. But if I was playing a single entry, I might just want to pass on it because you're going to know real early. If McDowell's not leading this race early, you can pretty much turn it off if you have a single entry. You're not going to win. But the guys here that are going to be, well, let me give you the guy who I think is kind of going to be mid-owned, which is a Ty Gibbs, who I think could potentially be a guy. He's he's starting at 25th, so I think that's far enough back. He just hasn't had a lot of success at these type of tracks. He had one top 10 here though in Atlanta last year, so he did finish 9th. But on the whole, the super speedways, he hasn't done well. But he's going to have obviously great equipment, great pit crew. And I think he's a talented enough driver where he could be the guy at this, in that mid-teen ownership that could get you to, be just enough of a differentiator to get you into the winning lineup. So I wouldn't be shocked if I wanted to look for some differentiation. Ty Gibbs could be that type of guy. But the guys who are going to be owned are Stenhouse and Suarez. And I think Suarez might be just a little under-owned, even though he's the probably the second highest owned guy here, being that 20 to 25% range. Suarez, a lot of success at these type of tracks, and I think he's being overlooked a little bit. Starting 23rd, easily gets you that place differential with a top, 7 or 8 finish, which he's shown he could do before. So I don't mind Suarez at all here, especially in a single entry GPP type of play.
All right, I got a little game theory for you guys. I'll throw this at you first, Rubio. How much salary are you comfortable with leaving on the table? I know in the chat today, we've got a few people that are saying they're new to this. They're asking questions. How much salary are you leaving? And then Stats onto you with that one.
I think you can leave like 900 easily. Because one of my first runs, my single entry teams, it was really easy to leave that much. The most I'm leaving in a 20 max, just using this sim, would be about 1,400. And what it does, it dips into that 5K range, and then it's like I don't really need to go up from anyone. But I also have posted bar a little bit higher than most, and with the unique setup, it could easily have went with Nemechek, over him if you really wanted to. But I think you can leave 1,000 and not really be stressing about it. This isn't Daytona where you just leave 6,500 or whatever, but I would be really worried if you just got about 1,000 left. You're like, you know what? I can't really upgrade anywhere else. I got a good good comfortableness with my place differentials, my dominators. So as long as you got those boxes checked, you're fine.
Okay. What do you think their stats? How much salary do you feel comfortable leaving today?
Yeah, with the single entry, I agree with that. Like 1,000. I'm more of an MME guy, and I think the 2,000 to 3,000 on the table is fine. Because with the 150 lineups, if you get someone like McDowell and you're playing him, you're sprinkling him in, and he wants to be in the dominator, that eliminates some of these guys. If it's McDowell, then there's a good chance it's not Logano. So you're going to take away some of the higher salary guys that have a chance. I don't particularly love Denny Hamlin, who we'll get to. So there's the possibility here that some of these really high price guys just don't get there because of the star positions. Blaney at 10-2 perhaps doesn't become optimal if he's not leading laps. So there are scenarios out there where we could get some of the cheaper, it winds up being a lot of mid-price guys get into that winning lineup, and we could leave some salary. So I think for MME, even up to 3,000, I think is a possibility. Yeah.
So and by the way, for those of you that are not members, the optimizer that you can get with subscription is SaberSim. And Rubio, I threw 4 drivers in there using your core, Matty Ice, and just messing with things. And we'll get into some other builds before the race starts. But I got no 7K range drivers. Do you think you'll have many builds like that?
I think it's actually very possible that's the case too. I mean,
okay,
House, Gibbs, and Suarez, might be the most likely to do it. But yeah, I mean, the 8K range is really good. We just talked about how LaJoie kind of clips the under 7K range too. So I don't think that's really surprising. It makes sense.
All right, very good. We'll move on to our next price range, and that's going to be the 8K range, right? So everybody seems to have Eric Jones as a core piece at 8K on DK, 8th at Daytona last week, 14th or better in all 4 races at the new Atlanta. Starting at the 37 spot. We got Alec Bowman at 8,200, second at Daytona. Stats, I'll come to you first here on this 8K range. To me, let me see here, just from this build, a couple of guys in the 8K range that we're looking at, and I think Jones can be pretty popular today. Can you start with him at 8K on DK?
Yeah, I mean, this is the play of the day, right? So he's starting 37th. I think he kind of ran into the wall during practice, and so he had the slowest time. Or during qualifying had the slowest time, and then and that got him in the back here. But real good at this track. I mean, he's finished no worse than 14th. He's got 2 top 10s and 11. So I mean, easily from starting at the 37 position, he gets himself in the optimal lineup. So now it's a question of, if you're MMEing, are you going to go all in, which is always difficult to do when you are playing NASCAR, because when he wrecks, then your day is pretty much going to be over and you're going to wipe out. So but the kind of the wreckage rate here, not what it is in Daytona. I think over the last 4 races, which is all we could really look at, I think we've had like 9 or 10 guys not finish the race in each of those years. So you got to kind of hope that Jones is not going to be one of those guys. He's shown that he really isn't that. He's not a guy who wrecks all that often on these speedways. So I have no problem if you just shove all in on Jones and take a shot there. He's just too good at these type of tracks at the start position for that place differential to pass up.
Rest of the price range here, Rubio. You want to talk about the 8K range? Let's start with Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Jones, clear play. He saved it. He saved it from going in and being a disaster. So the fact that he didn't have to really completely redo the car, go to a backup car or anything, he's got the equipment. He should be able to get into the top 20, even top 15. And you can't really ask for much more than that. I mean, he's one of the best floor plays in the slate because he can't lose any points. So you just got to like Jones here. I mean, I don't think the 27% ownership here on Sabre. I think it's going to be much higher too. I just think that a lot of people are just going to gravitate to him. But you have guys like Bowman, Buescher, Reddick, Chastain, Bubba in this range. And Chastain's going to be the guy that I'm looking for. I mean, great odds to win. Has the capability to, get it done on these type of tracks. We saw it with Daytona last week where he was leading the line. Ended up kind of, getting involved in that mess with Cindric and even LaJoie, I guess, if Cindric wanted to blame it on him. But yeah, Ross Chastain would be my next favorite there outside of Jones. And, a little bit of that PD, a little bit of that win upside, and, it matters here. And starting 21st, absolutely someone you can kind of lock into. I also like the Bubba and Reddick pairing here, 23-11. Like, you get a decent upside from them, right? Like, top 5 ability is there. We know Bubba ended up running really well in the Daytona 500. He wasn't really running really well during the race, but the finishing is all that matters. And him and Reddick both have that upside, and you got to include them in the pool. Like, I'm getting about 20% Bubba and 25% Reddick. Like, that's not bad at all. That's kind of where I want them. And ultimately, the only guy I'm really out on in this range is Chris Buescher, because even Alex Bowman, it's second place at Daytona, getting a little bit of it. But if I had to rank them, it's Jones, Chastain, and then I think I would put Bubba just ahead of Reddick. But this is a very strong range, and this is why that 7K range, when you skipped around it, Holden, it makes sense because the 8K range is loaded. The 6K range has options. Like, it's not completely out of the question to just kind of forego that 7K range for this one here.
Anything on your mind here, Stats? Looked like you wanted to say something.
No, I was agreeing. The one thing with Bubba Wallace, I'm not as high. I think Rubio's ownership is fine there. I think that's will be kind of where the market is. But he gets a lot of credit for his super speedway prowess, let's say, but he hasn't been here very good in Atlanta. Now, again, it's a small sample, but he's done much better at Talladega and Daytona. So if you want to fade someone, if you want to kind of fade a 20 to 25% guy, I don't mind fading Bubba Wallace at this price. So I think there's potential there. And the same thing with Reddick. Don't particularly love Reddick at that spot, but and then Buescher is obviously a total fade, potentially just a total fade, just because starting 7th, and we talked about it, it's just going to be so difficult unless he's leading laps, which is certainly possible. He does have potential for a high finish here, but it's going to take that plus leading a bunch of laps, I think, to get him there. So that's going to be the lowest owned guy of that grouping.
All right, so Jeremy Colliner, Melon Man will never see a urinal cake because he sits down when he pees. Is he talking about Chastain or you, Stats?
I don't know. I don't think he's talking about me. If I sit down when I pee, then I get the tip all wet. So there's I know I don't do that.
From what I understand, as you get older, like we're getting up there, and I'm not quite 50 yet, but you're well over 50.
By a few months, like a few months.
I mean, we're in there, buddy. I think in our 60s, sitting down is probably the way to go, just because of the prostate issues.
Yeah, but then what happens is then the bag is what starts hitting the bottom of the toilet and not the.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
It's Chastain, not Stats. We'll just go with that. Let's do a little light button action. And I know that in the Discord, the premium Discord, Big T's in there throwing some of his thoughts on today's race. And Rubio, Big T, obviously paying attention to the show, but Rubio is not. He's going back and forth with Big T because Big T said he's going to be under on Jones. Rubio, is Tony just crazy today, or is it time to start taking that advice and running with it?
I just think you got to be careful going too far under, because like it would take like a wreck for him to really not get there. And Big T did mention that he never comes through for him, Jones, that is. But at the same time, like it takes a very mediocre result for Jones to even like have potential to be in the winner. So I don't love going completely under on him. I do think he's one of the best players in the slate, but everyone else does too.
Pretty sure nobody is on fire more than Brittany right now at RPS. Just constant. I mean, we're seeing 6 figures, 50K, 100K. Brittany, good to see you here today. And I already know she smashed the like button.
Missed it. He was this close to the millie last week. 4th place.
Just on fire, dude. On fire. Oh, here, Tony actually got in the show. Jones is definitely. Oh, whoa, Tony. Cody! Whoa! Bad mojo, Big T. Yeah, that's right.
Really
Lycan said that. What do you think about playing JHN and Hocevar for a third of the ownership? No.
Yeah,
that's Tony's thing, though. He's fading Jones.
I got to say this, Holden, because I saw, predicting laps, whatever. We were also on the Jordan Anderson Xfinity fade. If you played him starting 38th when he was driving a tractor, I can tell you one thing: RPS wasn't. So the dude was literally driving a tractor and retired that car for last place midway through the race. And I'm glad that we were able to get on that yesterday. I just had to mention it because I just saw a tweet about it too. But it was a really obvious fade if you looked into it.
9K range, 9,100 Christopher Bell. Looks like good value. He has had struggles in Atlanta, though. And then at 9,300, Keselowski. It's been 100 races since his last win. Finished second in the race last year, though, stats. How about this 9K range on DK?
Yeah, we've got some good options in this range. You mentioned Keselowski second last year, but he was also sixth in the fall race here last year. So, I mean, you can't beat that. Plus 12th, a 12th finish in the race 2 years ago. This particular race, 2 years ago. So yeah, I think Keselowski is one of my favorite plays this week. I like the starting position of 24th. I think a ton of upside. I think a low wreck type of play. Now he did wreck out last week, but that's Daytona. I think he gets into the top 10 minimal and probably gets you into the optimal. So I like Keselowski quite a bit. Bell, I think a little bit more risk on the Bell side. Starting in a similar spot, starting 22nd, third last week. And at this track, though, he's had just one good finish. He had a third last year in this race, but then the other races not the great finishes, 23rd, 19th, and 23rd in the other three races that he's had here. So I think a little bit more risk on the Bell side, although he will be higher owned, but I'd like Keselowski over that. But I think the guy that everyone is going to be taking in this range is the guy starting 28th. That's Elliott. So I think Elliott's going to be higher owned than both of those guys. But those are your top three guys. Elliott, this is his home track. He's won here before. There's not much to dislike about Elliott other than the fact that, he's coming off of a year with injury and just hasn't been that guy yet. But if he's going to bounce back, this was a play I was contemplating taking for one of my bets. I think he's, I want to say plus 1,400 right now. You could easily bet him. I think he has a shot to win the race, even though starting 28. So I do like Elliott quite a bit. Now, then you're looking at the guys starting up at the front, like Busch and Larson. I know someone in the chat was mentioning Busch as potentially dominating early. Certainly can. He's going to be low owned. If you like Busch to dominate this race, that's going to be a huge play. But he's going to have to dominate the race and finish high in order to be in the optimal. And the same thing with Larson. So they're in a tough situation. Can they get to the front? And can they? Now they're in the right line here, right? So he's going to be starting. Kyle will be starting behind McDowell. So there's a chance that he does get pushed out there and then maybe takes the lead. That possibility is there, but that's what it's going to have to take. And I think Truex is a guy in this range at 9K that I'm just kind of tossing out. I think he's starting too high for me, and he just hasn't shown enough. He's just not aggressive enough at these type of tracks. So Truex was the one guy I think you could totally fade.
Rubio, we've got a little battle going on in the chat right now between Big T and Jeremy. Jeremy is saying that Tony goes 3 times a day to McDonald's. Big T is saying that he doesn't. You go to McDonald's 3 times a day. Who's right here in this chat battle?
Gotta side with the boss man, but I did have Taco Bell yesterday after days of Nepali food, and I tell you,
you are going to be so fat when you get old, man. You keep eating this shit.
The Nepali food ended up wrecking me more than the Taco Bell. The Taco Bell was fine. Saturday morning when I had the Nepali food, I was hurt. I was in for a beating, but you know who's going to be in for a beating today?
Oh boy, who?
Kyle Busch.
Oh, I knew he was. I mean, that's such an unsmooth transition. He feels more comfortable talking about the racing than Nepali food and Taco Bell. Just
jumping
brutal.
straight into it.
I mean, you really. I know you want to talk about it, but you really eat like shit. Like seriously, dude. Stats. This dude eats. I mean, Taco Bell is a staple. What other crappy restaurants do you eat at every day?
Arby's.
Arby's.
I had Arby's once.
You can literally see the rainbow.
That was the worst thing I ever.
Oh yeah, that's beef.
That was one of the worst things I ever ate in my life. Was Arby's.
No, it's disgusting, Rubio. What do you eat at Arby's? Do you eat the roast beef?
Absolutely.
You got to put so much horsey sauce in that stuff so you don't puke it out.
You know,
like literally the only meat I've ever seen with a rainbow of like oil on it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Daniel Suarez last week, Holden, was driving the Wendy's Xfinity truck. And I tell you, right after he crashed, there was no better ad placement than them going straight to the Daniel Suarez Wendy's cam right during a crash, like in the race. I was like, that's great.
Big T, I don't think that's true. She's in her 20s and she hasn't had a kid yet. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get it back into the race. Let's rein it back in. I will be one guy in this range I don't have a ton of interest in. I'm having trouble getting the Kyle Busch, but he is starting on the top lane. Maybe you can get around McDowell, but I don't see him leading the first stage. I do like guys like Logano a bit more. We touched upon, but really, Stats summed it up. This range really starts with Keselowski. He's one of the best plays in the slate. Does really well in these type of tracks, and is one of the top projected guys here at RPS. So absolutely love Keselowski. I do like Christopher Bell. I mean, those are your two floor plays, but I do prefer Larson over Kyle Busch. Larson hasn't really had a result at these type of tracks, but he's always in the mix. And I also saw yesterday how it was, the high line is important to run, right? Guys like Reddick can run that line. I don't know if Larson's able to make a pass, like if someone's able to make a mistake down, get down low a little bit too much. We did see that move. I forget who did it in the Xfinity race, but you have that potential there. And if anyone's able to make it work, it could be Larson, where he's able to run maybe a little bit higher into a corner and make a pass that way. And that matters to me. I mean, I do like him a little bit more than Kyle Busch. Truex is one of those guys where he's okay, but you really need a top 5 finish at the end of the day for him to even have a chance and maybe even dominate. But he's part of that dominators group that I was kind of making to where, I'll try and have a minimum of one of the 8 in the top 15. I know it's like a lot to process, but Truex is the guy I'm trying to get a little bit of, even if it's only a 10% or so. But yeah, and Chase Elliott, one of the best plays in the slate too. Core play for me. It just sucks. I mean, he hasn't been good over the last calendar year. I mean, it's tough to say, but he's still Chase Elliott, still in a great piece of equipment. Got to play him at 9,800, and going to go right back to him. And if he fails me today, Holden, I'll be staying away from Chase Elliott for a while. But I don't expect that to be the case.
All right, very good. Let's go. Rubio. Oh, Big T just pwned you. Anything else here sensational that we should be asking you about? Are we good to move on to our top price range?
Let's get to the top range.
Let's do it. Like button to be wonderful. Got a nice little crowd today. I know our Daytona show pulled in about 3,500 views. One of the most viewed, I think, if not the most viewed, one of the top 2 most viewed NASCAR shows last week. So really terrific. Thanks to everybody for watching this show. Give us a little love with that like button. 10-3, Joey Logano is the favorite. Dominating win. 140 of the 260 laps he led. First and second place in the 2 stages. I was watching an interview with him prepping for this. He was 14 years old. They threw him in a car in Atlanta. He went 200 miles an hour. At 14, can you imagine that? At 14 years old doing 200 miles an hour? Oh, boy. Rubio, what's the fastest you've ever driven?
I'm a good citizen of the United States. 70 miles per hour.
Get out of here. You've at least hit 100, haven't you? You've driven 100.
You see the car I drive? That engine is shot. That's a Chevy.
What?
This is why I hate
Chevy Traverse or something?
It's a Sonic. The Chevy.
Yeah,
Chevy
it's a
Sonic.
minivan.
I hate Chevy so much. I cheer against Chevy, and I drive a Chevy. I cheer against Chevy in NASCAR
because your car sucks.
I was able to hit 100 one time. I wanted to see if it could do it. It could, but that's it.
Stats, could you imagine driving and seeing Rubio in his Chevy minivan just hitting 100 miles an hour?
I can. I can actually. Yeah.
Yeah. How fast do you think you've gone, Stats?
I had 2 challengers, so I tested it. Like, it was hard. I had them in New York, so like where could you really drive that fast? But I got it one time going to play golf up to like 110 in New Jersey. Yeah, on like I-80.
I think I had 120.
That was the best.
120,
but I got to drive.
125.
I got to drive at Charlotte Speedway, with DraftKings.
I drove at the Kansas,
like
Kansas Speedway like 20-something years ago, but I don't remember. I think the fastest I've ever gone in real life was like maybe 120, 125 in the middle of nowhere in Nevada, because there was just nothing there. I was like, screw it. It's the middle of the day, trying to impress this girl. And basically she was not impressed because she got too scared. And then then we got done. There was no roast beef eating. Okay. So the top tier here, Statsational, Hamlin, Logano, Blaney, Byron. We only got a few of them. How many are you rostering today?
Well, they're going to be fairly low owned. Like the high price guys are going to be, in that 10 to 20% own range. And that's just because you've got the guy, the starting position. So, I mean, let's start with one of the guys. Let's start with the guy I probably like the least out of this. And that's the highest price guy, which is Hamlin, starting 13th. Don't love the history here. He's going to have to get, he's going to have a top finish, maybe even a top 3 finish with some dominating and some laps led. So my least favorite guy of that group. And then I would go to Logano and Blaney. Like Blaney, just fantastic, probably the best plate racer right now in the sport. But again, starting 6th, he's going to have to lead laps. And can he get to the lead when he's got his teammate in front of him? Can he get to the lead here early? It would have to be later in the race. I mean, you never know how this is going to shake out. Obviously, he's got the potential. If he does get out there, he could lead a ton of laps. But I think you're going to have to be a little lower on the ownership here with Blaney. And then Logano, that's your best shot to basically take over McDowell. I think, we've seen him do it in the past. It's going to be fairly, I would say he's probably going to be in like that 18 to 20% ownership. So you've got to make a stand there. I kind of like Logano. I think he does get to the front. And I think he does make that move, and I think he will lead a bunch of laps here early. So I don't want to be a total fade, but I think you can make that case where you can almost take a chance here and then in an MME and say, you know what, I'm going to just take a shot that he doesn't lead, and I'm going to totally fade him. And then if that works out for you, you're going to pick up a lot on the field. But if he gets out there, even if he gets out there early, he's still going to have to finish really high. So you're not totally dead. Like if you play McDowell, you might be totally dead early on in that race when he doesn't get out to the lead. So you'll have a shot to at least watch the whole race regardless of what Logano does early. But I think my favorite play here is going to be Byron. He's starting 11th. He won last week. He's won at this track twice. And he's actually led a whole lot of laps from a similar start position. So I think Byron is another guy who can lead a lot of laps here. From where he's starting, he starts 11th here today. I think he started 12th and led laps before. So no problem for him to be able to get up to the front, lead a lot of laps, and potentially win the race. So I do like Byron the most out of this group.
B3's been 188. Do you know that planes take off at about 170 miles an hour before the wheels are up? So all of us have been at least 170 miles an hour.
Look that up just now.
No. I'm a pilot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Absolutely not. I would definitely crash the plane. Rubio, top tier. Let's do it. And then we'll plug the site. We'll talk a little FanDuel. We'll get plays of the day, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, can I make a quick plug here because I see it in the background? Ethan Clark is in the background there, the Iowa game. So we got to wrap it up quick. Future WNBA first pick for the Indiana Fever. Don't forget, we'll have WNBA.
Rubio, shut up and talk NASCAR. Stay in your lane, bro. That is brutal.
I'll get
We're not talking women's basketball on the show. We just went for 300. We lost 26 viewers the second you brought that name up.
I will say this. All right, we'll get back to NASCAR. Stats made an excellent point earlier in the show, talking about how Logano has a bunch of teammates who maybe stick with that bottom line and try. Maybe that's a strategy too, to try and stick him out into first place there, get that top line, and ultimately get by McDowell. And that's intriguing because if that happens, Logano's got an incredible chance to be optimal because there's a decent chance he leads another 100+ laps like he did last year. And we saw it yesterday. I mean, the potential's there. The floor isn't, but it's the risk that you kind of just have to, kind of come to terms with. Even if he doesn't lead the first 60 laps or 50 laps or whatever, like there's still a chance that he gets up to the lead and, is still able to get optimal, more so than a guy like McDowell, where you're dead if he doesn't have that lead. Logano, you have confidence where he can get back up there and lead a lot of laps. Logano is the number one for me. And then Byron, I like him. The dude's a winner. He just wins. Starting 11th, I do have the same amount of him and Hamlin. The one guy I don't really have a ton of is Blaney. And that's not to say Blaney's a bad play, but it kind of falls in the same bucket as Kyle Busch, especially if you're, doing a 20 entry max and stuff. You got to commit somewhere. And Blaney's a guy where I'm trying to just get at least one lineup of it in 20 max and stuff. not really able to kind of get it all the way there. So still fiddling with the lineups, but Blaney's the guy I don't really have a piece of. But Hamlin and Byron are kind of having the same playing field. But yeah, I think I'm with stats here. If you can even bet stage winners and stuff like that, I really want to see if I can get Logano stage 1 winner potentially there for a decent chunk of plus money.
Stats, 10K range, Hamlin, Logano, Blaney, Byron. So they're going to be some lower owned, right? So that's what we got to take out of this.
Yeah, they're gonna. It's not going to be as high owned as some of these other groups, the 9K group and whatnot on the whole. So I mean, you could be able to find a winner by looking in that group, but it's going to be hard to get a lot of them just because of the start positions to make it into the optimal.
All right, had a really good week last week. Daytona 500 this week, AMBETTER Health 400. I'm expecting to get back to winning more money because these guys best in the business. Let me just throw out there at you, if you haven't signed up for RPS, first of all, we got a code for you, RPS 15% off your first payment. Here's what we got going on right now. We got the NBA best team in the business, and I'm not just saying that because I work here. Big T, JSU, JBC, just up and down, AP, all these guys. It really is amazing how great they are at NBA. And they've taught me a lot. We got our golf team, NHL, college basketball, Stevie Boyton doing a good job over there. MMA, last night, I think Tony took home some money, and that helped our members as well because they were tailing his plays. Racing, soccer, esports, tennis, Euro League, everything going on right now. Just because the NFL is done doesn't mean there's not other sports to play. You already know this with NASCAR, but there is a lot going on at RPS. RPS 15% off your first payment. Okay, guys, is there much of a difference on FanDuel, Rubio? It's like the cores are the same. Anybody standing out?
Yeah, so the biggest difference on FanDuel ultimately is like the place differential points are worth like half the amount. So it's basically 0.5 for every place you gain. So Eric Jones' upside is limited a little bit more on FanDuel, but still, he's got a great floor, can't lose points or whatever, you know. Well, I guess every lap that you complete, that's another thing too. You want cars that stay on the track, because if your car isn't on the track, you're not getting points at all. So just make sure they have guys who can finish it to the end of the race there on FanDuel. But scoring, it's kind of the same outside of the fact that you get scored for every lap that you run, and place differentials are cut in half. And the pricing's a little bit different, but it's not really too different hold, and that's why the cores are kind of the same too. Like LaJoie is good on both sides. Like he's below 7K on FanDuel, he's below 7K on DraftKings. Jones is a decent price on both sides too, and then obviously Chase Elliott for me too. I got the same core on both sides. I posted it on my Twitter at Rubio Dimes too. So, but yeah, nothing too crazy.
Mr. Stats, anything on FanDuel standing out?
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, it's all about construction, and like Rubio was saying, you only get a half point for the place differential. A lot of people look at the back end and how that affects it, but it also affects the guys at the top because you're not losing as much. So if you're starting at a high start position like a Logano, he's not as bad a play on FanDuel. He's probably a better play, I should say, on FanDuel, because of the fact that if he finishes, 6th or 7th, he's just not going to lose as many points as he will on DraftKings. So what you have is the guys at the back, and then the cheap guys at the back are just really less of a play. Guys like Hosever and Haley just aren't as strong. Even Nemechek, they're just not as strong on FanDuel. So, and then you start less drivers on FanDuel as well. But yeah, that's the big takeaway. But for the most part, yeah, what we said about the drivers on DraftKings holds true on FanDuel.
All right, very good. We got play of the day, and then we'll get out of here. Mr. Rubio Dimes.
Yeah, I mean, since I posted my core for free, I'll pick someone from that same core too. I don't want to give away, too much stuff for free, even though I'm always accessible and stuff. But we'll go ahead and just pick out. We'll do Chase Elliott, because he could come in a little bit underowned. A lot of people might stick with the top guys there. I think Chase Elliott has the potential to lead late on in the race. It would take a good strategy, maybe stuck in the pits to kind of get there, but Elliott's upside with that floor of the place differential that he provides for me makes him one of my top exposed guys today. I really like him. He'll be in my main team for sure. And hoping that he can actually, put in a good performance for once for me.
Arby's play of the day, Rubio Dimes. At Rubio Dimes. At Holden Kushner. At Statsational. Statsational play of the day.
So, hey, obviously you could give out the obvious plays like a, Jones or something like that. I'm going to try that. We're doing the show. We're going to be doing the show every week. I'm going to try to give like a play that maybe not everyone's going to have. That's what I'm going to do every week and see if we can get someone a little lower owned. So not a total guy, not a 5% guy, but I'm going to go with like a Daniel Suarez and take a shot there as a potential guy that people I think are overlooking. And so I'm going to go with Suarez with some upside here.
Stats besides for the just complete botch of LaJoie's name. How did I do in the pronunciations?
Listen, you're a professional broadcaster, man. So I for the most part, I think you did really well.
Okay, because I totally blew that, and I've told people, it takes me double the time to prep for this type of show than it does any other type of show. Rubio, scale of 1 to 10, mispronunciations. How did I do? 10 being the best.
6, because you botched LaJoie's name twice.
Dick.
Different
All right,
one.
whatever, roast beef boy. All right, I'm done. I don't want to hear from you anymore. What a mean individual you are. Like button on the way out. We do have an NBA show today, 4:45 Eastern. Kurt and Mangone going to get you up to lock in the NBA. For Statsational, for Rubio Dimes. I'm Holden. Thanks for watching the show today, and keep running pure.